The most profound tragedy of our modern age is not that we are alone, but that we are terrified of the very people who could save us from that loneliness. We have spent thousands of years building a world that supposedly connects us, yet we have accidentally engineered a society where other people have become the greatest source of our anxiety. We are a species that survives by touch, yet we have built a culture where touching, emotionally or physically, feels like a threat to our autonomy. We are starving for a home we are too afraid to enter. If you have ever felt a hollow ache while scrolling through a sea of faces on your phone, or felt a wave of inexplicable panic when someone tries to get too close to your heart, you are touching the pulse of a collective wound. Maybe you've noticed that your relationships feel like a constant tug of war between wanting to be seen and wanting to hide. You probably think your loneliness is a personal failure, a glitch in your personality, or a sign that you are uniquely broken. But the truth is much larger and more ancient than your individual life. By the end of this exploration, you will understand that your isolation was not an accident, but a destiny set in motion long before you were born. In the next few minutes, we are going to look past the screens and the statistics to see the broken village for what it really is, a necessary, painful movement in the great pendulum of human existence. You will see why we are currently caught between the fear of suffocation and the fear of abandonment, and how we can begin to swing back toward the warmth of the fire. To understand why we feel so disconnected today, we have to look at the village that once was, not as a romanticized myth, but as a biological reality. For the vast majority of our history, you didn't choose your community, you were born into it. You were surrounded by aunts, cousins, elders, and neighbors who knew your name, your parents' history, and the specific sound of your laugh. This village was a source of immense security, but it was also a source of constant friction. There was no privacy, no unfollowing a neighbor who annoyed you, and no escaping the collective gaze. In that world, loneliness was rare, but the sense of being suffocated by the expectations of others was the primary psychological burden. As civilization progressed, we began to trade that suffocating closeness for individual freedom. We moved to cities, we sought career independence, and we broke away from the rigid structures of the old world. We wanted to be self-serving in the sense that we wanted to serve our own dreams rather than the dreams of the tribe. We achieved it. We got the freedom we asked for. But in the process, the village broke. The divorce rates climbed as we prioritized personal fulfillment over communal endurance. The families scattered. We became islands of autonomy, floating in a sea of strangers. And suddenly, the burden shifted. The fear of suffocation was replaced by an even more primal terror, the fear of abandonment. Think of a young professional living in a sleek, modern apartment in a bustling city. She has thousands of followers and a high-paying job. But when she comes home at night, the silence is deafening. She goes on dates that feel like job interviews, terrified that if she shows her true messy self, the other person will simply vanish into the digital ether. She is the embodiment of the anxious, avoidant dance. She wants to be loved, but she has been conditioned to believe that intimacy is a trap. If she gets too close, she'll lose her hard-won independence. If she stays too far, she'll wither away in the cold. This isn't just a personal problem, it's a generational haunting. The roots of this fear are watered in the nurseries of our modern society. Imagine a child whose parents are stretched to their absolute limits. These parents aren't bad people, they are tired people. They spend 10 hours a day trading their emotional energy for a paycheck, only to come home with nothing left in the tank for their children. The child is sent to daycares or after-school programs where they are managed by staff who, despite their best intentions, cannot provide the deep, biological attunement of a stable family. The child learns that attention is something you have to compete for, or worse, something that is only granted by a glowing screen. When we hand a crying child an iPad, we aren't just giving them a toy. We are giving them an artificial nervous system. We are teaching them that the world is a place where boredom, the very state that forces us to seek out other humans, can be cured by a dopamine hit from a silicon chip. This creates a generation that is highly stimulated but deeply disconnected. By the time these children become adults, their brains are wired for the quick hit of a notification rather than the slow build of a relationship. They find real people boring because real people don't have an algorithm designed to maximize their engagement. This is where the noise of our society becomes a weapon against connection. We are drowning in sensational news and profit-driven narratives that tell us the world is a dangerous place. The media thrives on our fear because fear is the most engaging emotion. It keeps us glued to our screens, looking for the truth in a storm of digital debris. But the more we look at the screen for truth, the less we look at our neighbor. We begin to see other people as categories or threats rather than as souls. We lose the community sense because we are too busy defending our digital borders. You might look at this and feel a sense of despair, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence. We are on the brink of a world where AI can provide a perfect companion, one that never argues, never gets tired, and never leaves. It's the ultimate solution to the fear of abandonment, but it's also the ultimate surrender to loneliness. If we replace the friction of human relationships with the smoothness of a machine, we lose the very thing that makes us grow. We are like stones in a river. It is the bumping against other stones that rounds our edges and makes us beautiful. However, I want you to consider a radical thought. This loneliness was meant to happen. It is not anyone's fault. Not your parents, not the tech giants, not yours. If we look at the grand scale of existence, from the Big Bang to this very moment, we see a pattern of expansion and contraction. The universe began as a single point of infinite density and exploded into a vast, cold expanse of separated stars. We are currently in the expansion phase of human consciousness. We had to move apart to understand our own individuality. We had to experience the void of the modern world to realize how much we actually need each other. Everything in existence moves in a pendulum form. We swung from the suffocating village to the isolated individual. We are currently at the furthest edge of that swing, where the air is thin and the cold is biting. This is why things feel so extreme right now. The divorce rates, the screen addiction, the political polarization. We are at the apex of the arc. But the law of the pendulum is that the furthest point of the swing is also the moment where the energy begins to turn back toward the center. Loneliness will likely get worse before it gets better, but that worsening is the gravity of the universe pulling us back together. Imagine a world where people start to get bored of being bored by their phones. Imagine a young father who decides that instead of checking his email for the 100th time, he is going to sit on the floor and just be with his daughter, even if it feels unproductive. Imagine a neighbor who sees the noise on the news and decides to ignore it in favor of bringing a tray of cookies to the person next door, regardless of their politics. These aren't just small acts. They are the weights that pull the pendulum back. They are acts of rebellion against 1,000 years of isolation. We must learn to be nice to each other again, not as a shallow social grace, but as a survival strategy. To be nice is to acknowledge that the person standing in front of you is also a victim of the Big Bang's expansion, that they are also a fragment of the universe trying to find its way back home. When we bond, when we choose the suffocation of a commitment over the freedom of a swipe, we are healing the broken village within ourselves. We are proving that the fear of abandonment can be conquered by the courage of staying. As you move through your day, I want you to look at the people around you. The stranger on the bus, the tired parent in the grocery store, the lonely elder on the park bench. Don't see them as obstacles or shadows. See them as fellow travelers on a very long, very cold journey. The bridge between us is not made of fiber optic cables. It is made of the quiet truth that we are all terrified and we all want to be loved. The village isn't gone. It's just waiting for us to stop being afraid of each other long enough to rebuild it. The pendulum is already beginning its slow, heavy turn. You can feel it in the growing hunger for authenticity, the rising interest in community living, and the simple, desperate desire for a hug that lasts more than a second. We are coming back to the fire. It won't be the fire of the ancient past, but a new fire, built with the wisdom of our independence and the warmth of our rediscovered need for one another. Be patient with the process. Be kind to the strangers you meet. The universe spent billions of years pulling us apart. It will take a little time to learn how to hold each other again. Thank you for watching. Please share and subscribe for more.